what filing status should I choose?
On what?
Okay.
No other context.
With no other context, you should probably choose head of household. There we go. We're done. No. Okay. So it's not that simple.
This guy's fired.
No. So essentially, there are different tax tables on a per status basis, right? Correct. So the reason why I say head of household is because based on being a single income earner, head of household actually is the best or most preferred tax
rates.
Kind of rates. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Charlie. Ultimately, your status is not something you choose. Your status, well, in most cases, it's not something that you choose.
Right.
If you are single, then you generally only have one option, though a second option can potentially present itself. If you're single with no dependents whatsoever, then you generally file a single tax return. Unless you are common law married, not legally
if your
married.
State supports that.
Yep, if your state supports it and you are common law married and you meet the requirements, then you could potentially file a married filing joint tax return, though that's a very extreme case. Right. Doesn't happen very often at all. If you are married on December 31st at the end of the year, right? All that matters is 12/31, right?
I don't care how long you were single on that date.
Yep. So 12/31, that actually matters a lot. If you are married on that date, then your options generally are married filing joint or married filing separate. Generally speaking, if you are single and you have a dependent, you may qualify for head of household.
Right.
If you were married and you have a child under the age of 17 and your spouse passes away, you may qualify for qualifying widow or widower. So, I mean, shouldn't go into every single status, but I mean, you get the gist, right? It's not so simple, as to say what you should or you shouldn't do. That's almost an impossible question to answer.
You want to choose what's most beneficial to you. There was a point in time where people looked at that and there was a math difference of, this marriage penalty. It was never an actual term, just a sentiment of two single people making tons of money and they get married and they have even more tax than they were single. So that's been a lot of averaged out. That doesn't even happen until you hit like $400,000 or $500,000 income.
It happens eventually, right?
Correct,
the marriage penalty still exists, but your income has to be very extreme.
It used to be a bit lower.
Yeah.
And so there's that. So most people, if they're married filing joint, it's just going to end up being better for you.
Yep.
Married filing separate, there's an odd thing in the system right now that I want to just throw out there. I don't generally advocate for married filing separate. It ends up being, on average, worse than married filing joint. However, those who have big bad student loans, there's some interesting student loan, not forgiveness, but just the way they do their math, in that they will consider your income if you file married filing separate. So if taxpayers' income, you and your spouse, your income it's different, right? One has significantly more than the other, and you file married filing separately, you're likely going to pay more tax. I have a couple, a double female couple, and their income is skewed. And it's the female with the lower income that has all the student loans. And if they filed jointly, her obligation to pay her student loans is $900 a month. If she files on her own, her obligation to pay her student loans is $150 a month. And so while they pay like $4,000 more in tax, you look at that and go, $8,000 a year in payments or $4,000 in tax.
Yep.
So as Kevin was saying, there's a lot of variables that can come into it. Generally, your status, I agree, is you are this is what you file. It just happens.
Yep.
Now, filing status for a tax return, I think we've answered. There is a status you can choose whenever you are employed. You file on that W-4 that says, how do you want payroll to do their math? I say that deliberately. It's not, if you fill out your W-4 and give it to payroll HR that says single, it doesn't mean you're filing a single tax return. What you're telling them is, I want you to use the math tables for single people. You can check whatever box you want on there. You can say you have as many kids as you want. All it's doing is telling payroll what math to do. And when you file your tax return, you're going to file what status you actually are. And the math will then just show, did you take too much out or did you not give them enough? It's what will end up happening.
Charlie, that was a little soapboxy. I'm pretty sure there's a little bit of a
Are you proud of me?
soapbox. Very.
Thank you.
And a little jealous
Oh,
because I like the soapboxes. The other thing that I will mention is imagine for a moment that instead of married filing joint, that married filing separate was superior, right? Imagine for a moment that that was a superior filing status.
Right.
Generally, it's about 100 million tax returns a year that the IRS processes. How many more would it be to process if married filing separate was superior, right?
so they made it an incentive to.
I think that the federal government has a reason
Sure.
to make sure married filing joint is slightly superior because there's just a whole lot more processing that would have to happen if married filing separate was generally better. So yeah, single is a fine filing status. Married filing joint is a fine filing status. Head of household is a great filing status. Qualifying widower, generally speaking, is a great filing status. Married filing separate is my least favorite filing status
Right.
for tax implications.
Right.
Maybe that kind of answers your question.
That's perfect.
More than.
Thank you.